right, so this is the third part of our three-part Gypsy Leopard tutorial, and here we have the cup that's already been base painted, it's been glittered, the spots have been put on, and I've put one layer of epoxy over the glitter at this point. Make sure that you seal your glitter with a acrylic gloss spray sealer. I use Rust-Oleum 2x gloss clear. You can get it at any Walmart. So this is, we just have a pretty conservative coat of epoxy over this, and it's cured fully. I would say it's probably like maybe 30 milliliters of epoxy for like a 20-ounce skinny like this. Okay. And then I went ahead and mixed 30 milliliters of epoxy. And I have 2 extra medicine cups here. And I have my chunky glitter that I'm going to be layering in as well. So the color that I use to do the swirls on the traditional Gypsy is Acapulco, just plain cheap acrylic paint that you can get from Walmart. And then I use a gold mica. And you can find gold mica powder from a lot of different suppliers. So I'm going to take this 30 milliliters of epoxy that I have mixed here, and I'm going to first put some on the cup, but I'm also going to reserve enough to do the colors in a minute. So we're first just going to coat this. You want a decent coating on here, but also not too much, because you don't want a lot of movement in the paint and the mica once it's on here. So we're just kind of spreading it on. I would say for a 20-ounce skinny, probably going to use about 15 to 20 milliliters of epoxy on this step, okay? Get the bottom a little bit. Okay. And at this point, I'm not going to put any heat on this, okay? Just smoothing it out. And while that's kind of resting and rolling, I'm going to divvy up my epoxy that I'll be using for the colors. You need very, very little epoxy for these colors, because you're not really going to be tying in too much. So when you're mixing acrylic paint into epoxy, when I'm doing my Gypsy Leopard, the paint in the epoxy will get kind of stringy, and you kind of want that. So I just squirt a little bit in, about that much, and I only have maybe 5 to 7.5 milliliters of epoxy there. Okay, and then I should probably take my glove off. The mica, you're just going to take like a little, probably about that much, and just dump that into your epoxy. So I'm going to mix up the mica. Now obviously you could use any color mica, any color acrylic paint. You could use epoxy dye if you're comfortable with that. The thing that I like about using acrylic paint on this particular design is, unlike epoxy dye or inks, when I mix it into the epoxy, it's going to get stringy. And I really like that because I could string it along the design. And that's how I achieve those kind of thin lines. So as I'm mixing it, you see how it's starting to get kind of stringy? If it's not quite stringy enough, I'll put in like 1 or 2 drops more of the paint until it kind of starts to stick to the side. See, like, that's the texture that I want. Now I'm using Alumilite epoxy. You may achieve different results with different epoxies. I don't know because I don't use any other epoxy. But this is just what works for me. All right, and then make sure that you put away your mica so you don't make a huge mess. Put your paint away. This is just rubbing alcohol that I'm spraying onto coffee filters to clean up. I do not keep paper towels in my craft room anywhere near my tumblers. And I'll go over that in the perfect epoxy finish video that I do later on. So I like to use a little tool like this. This is just like a silicone brush. Mine is a hot mess because I use this tool all the time. You can get these on Amazon for pretty inexpensive. So anyway, that's that. I'm going to get a different clean pair of gloves on. All right, and we're going to start with the color first. Now, it's going to be kind of hard for me to explain this, but basically you want to pick up some of that color and just kind of let it fall where it wants. Okay, we're going to do it again over this bottom here. And just let the cup turner do the work, and you're just kind of letting it drip down. Now, do you see the advantage of having the stringy epoxy? It's like pulling ribbons of color along the cup. And I only do this on either side of the gold. You could do it wherever you want, but that's just how I like it. Okay? So really that's about it for the color. If you want to do more, if you want to do less, then what I do is I go in with my heat gun. Wait till it comes back around. I'll stop my turner. And I'll just blow the heat on certain areas. Now keep in mind, more heat equals wider, milkier lines. Less heat means skinnier, more defined lines. So maybe you just want to fan out the bottom and the top of the cup with a milkier line and leave the center part of the lines more defined. You have the ability to control that with your heat gun. And all I'm doing is I'm starting and stopping my turner and hitting it with heat. You want to make sure that your turner spins in the same direction through this whole process. I like it to turn away from me. Okay, so now once I've got the mica, once I've got the paint done and I have it fanned out with the heat in the places that I want, I'm going to come through and do the gold. Okay, the gold, I like finer lines, so I will not put heat on the gold. That's why I do the paint first, so I could add heat, then do the gold with no heat so I can keep definition in the lines. So I'm going to stop my turner really quick. I'm just going to paint in a little squiggle. No like kind of rhyme or reason to it. If you get too much, just wipe it off with your finger. That's why you want a gloved hand. Okay. This tool, the fine tip, allows me to kind of draw with my mica in these fine lines. Okay. And I'm not really doing much. Just a few here or there. I kind of feel like less is more on this. Okay, that's all I'm going to do for the gold. I mean, I could maybe do a little bit more here. That's it. If you have any that drips down the bottom, just wipe that off with your finger. Okay. So now that that's all done, we're just going to come in with our chunky glitter. For this traditional gypsy, I used Mariner from Peachy Olive Glitters. This is like a teal iridescent chunky. And I'm just kind of sprinkling that in next to where I did my paint lines. Just sprinkling it in with my fingers. If a couple pieces go astray, just come in with your silicone tool and kind of move them out the way. And it's kind of just like where I feel like putting it. Okay. All right. And I'm going to make sure I get this little piece out of that spot there. I don't like any of the glitter to get on to my spots, or the acrylic or the mica. And then just kind of watch it for a minute. If you see any like glooping of the paint or any areas where you might have gone too heavy, just wipe it off with a gloved finger. But as long as we didn't put too much heat down from the beginning, you shouldn't really get a whole lot of movement. Okay. So that concludes this part of the tutorial. Well, actually the whole tutorial, because now we're done. What happens after this is you would just put another layer of epoxy over if you need to sand on your top or your bottom rim, whatever you got, however you would finish a normal cup, and then your decal placement. But that is it. I will eventually do a video on perfect epoxy techniques, but this tutorial, it was mainly just to show you the main components of how I do the Gypsy Leopard. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what you see, subscribe to my channel, like the video, engage in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon.